This episode of the Better Two podcast is brought to you by Kitty Mystic and DM Needham, author of My Days with the Dark Muse, as well as Love is Worth Waiting For. Hi gang, Donna here. Thanks for tuning into the Better Two podcast. Today's guest is Naeema Olatunji. Naeema has a very interesting story. She's wrote a book called Raised as a Lie, and she has two questions in the trailer that I had to pose to her because I think that these two questions can actually relate on a lot of levels to a lot of different people. And one is, how do you love and hate part of yourself? And the other is, how do you forgive when you can't forget? And that's a true statement, because how many times has our past come back to haunt us? Anyway, I hope you enjoy the show. Hi, Naeema. How are you doing today?
Good afternoon. I am phenomenal. Really, really grateful to be in this space with you.
I'm glad you're here, because your story is actually pretty amazing. From what I was looking at your website, and two things that were on the website in your book trailer I definitely want to talk about. But that's later on in your story. So tell us about Raised as a Lie, because obviously this is your Better Two moment all rolled into one in your book. So tell me about it.
Yes, I am lucky enough to have had a really phenomenal program at the Creator Institute to help me become an author. I did not ever see that one really coming to fruition. I don't know if you've ever had those moments where you've written things down or maybe thought things as a dream and never, you're like, that's not going to ever happen. So I used to write down, I was never a journaler, right? But I used to write down on a goals list that I wanted to become a New York Times bestselling author.
Nice. Okay.
I have no idea how you even do that if you're not currently writing, but it was on the goal, right? I was on the goal list. And when my entire life came crashing down last year, I was not prepared, because I didn't think, I thought I had been through it all, had done the difficult things, I had surpassed them, and I was a better person for it. And I'm 49 and I have arrived. And turns out I hadn't. And when I found myself down on the floor after begging some man that was never in a position to love me, not to leave me, I had to ask myself some really hard questions. Who told you that you weren't worthy of being loved unconditionally? Who told you that you weren't enough? And that requires some really deep self-introspection and then admitting that I couldn't do it alone. And that was really difficult. I'm sure, like many of your listeners can relate to, I grew up in a house that asking for help was a sign of weakness. And a sign of weakness was never going to get you to your own goals and your dreams, because then you weren't going to be able to achieve them because of said weakness. And so it was better to show strength, right? Secret had a commercial that they ran, Never Let Them See You Sweat.
Yeah.
That was 100% my embodied virtue. Never let them see you sweat. And so when everything crashed down around me, I had to do some really deep analyzing, and I ended up in therapy. And those journals, right, like all the things that I was writing through that process became a book. And it's about essentially overcoming childhood trauma and understanding that as an adult, if you do not heal the wounds from your childhood, they will show up because they are running the show in every adult decision you make. Only it's subconscious. And so you aren't fully aware that that's what's happening, but it is. And it was good to work through that.
And it's a gift when you can work through it, because a lot of people don't. They just ignore it and they keep going. And I mean, I look at my father, and he is still going through some of the trauma he experienced as a child, though he will never admit it. And it was funny because the other day I had texted him and we were because he can't hear, so we text. And he sent me an article about being a widow. I cannot stand that word because it's a bad label. It sets you up for being scammed. I just don't like it. So he sends me the article, and I'm like, I appreciate this, but I don't recognize this word. I don't like it. And he's like, I'm sorry. He's like, I said, I'm sorry a lot to people because I asked them to talk louder or I talk too loud, and I'm always apologizing. And I made the statement to him. And see, this is why I know my dad will never acknowledge anything. Made the statement to him saying, I've said I'm sorry a lot through my life because mom used to blame me for her problems. And then he's like, well, take care. I'm like, okay. So you're not going to deal, you don't want to talk to me about what I've gone through. And well, you're still dealing with your own stuff. So, okay.
Yes. Yes. And sometimes we have to accept people for exactly where they are because we recognize that our healing is never going to come through them. That's not going to be the through way for which that we find our own peace and our own center. And it was so great of you to recognize that moment, like, okay, I understand. Thank you.
I guess where this all stems from me knowing him, because I used to look at him with rose-colored glasses, and then something happened, and I kind of took them off because when my half-sister was murdered by her husband, and her kids were too, I heard him make the statement of, well, that closes that chapter. And when he said that, granted, he left them when she was 2 and he was a weekend dad. When he said that, and there's 12 years between him and her and I, when he said that, it cut me to my core of how can you say that about your own flesh and blood? And it was like that moment, and with some other things, just made me go, I don't want to talk to you. He got very political. Our politics didn't go together. And I was just like, I'm done. It wasn't until my husband passed that we kind of reconnected. But I realized during that, even that, it's like my journey is not the same as your journey.
Yeah.
And even though we both experienced losing our spouse in our arms, basically, it's still not the same journey.
Yeah.
And so I accept you for who you are, and I love you because you're my father, but we're never going to have that relationship.
Yeah. Yeah. And accepting and loving people for who and what they are and recognizing them, I think is the greatest freedom because we give other people grace. And when we give other people grace, what we essentially do is douse ourselves with it, right? Like we embody grace when we're able to give it away. And it sounds like that's exactly what you did with your dad. That's pretty amazing.
Well, there was this conversation, there was a couple of weeks ago or a month ago, he said something to the effect that he wouldn't change anything about his past. And I took that because my dad has always been, I always considered a functioning alcoholic. I've been corrected by saying he just abused alcohol because he was able to walk away. He was able to walk away without a problem. So therefore he wasn't an alcoholic. I'm like, okay, fine. But when he says, I wouldn't change anything about the way my life was, that tells me you have no regrets about how you treated your kids. So therefore, ergo, he's going to be who's going to be. And he said if he had the chance, he would do it all over again. So what does that tell you?
Right.
But I want to, these are the two things that really hit. And I know that a lot of people can understand this. I think I don't want to say it's a generational thing because a lot of people have experienced it, but I think Gen Xers, we kind of had this weird thing because our parents were hippies, but they weren't hippies. And they were a little bit more open about their emotions, but they weren't. So it's kind of a weird thing. And two things that you wrote in your trailer that really stood out was how do you love and hate parts of yourself? And how do you forgive when you can't forget? And those are two very true statements, especially about the time we grew up in. Because we were constantly sent mixed messages that you were this, but no, you're not.
Yeah.
You can do this, but no, you can't.
Yeah.
So in your experience, what made you decide that those two key statements, how did they resonate with you?
I think the beautiful thing about the experience of writing my book having conversations with other people, sharing family stories, family secrets with other people, what I have come to realize in and fully embrace is Maya Angelou's quote, "We are more alike than we are different." And while I was referring to being raised as a white child in a white family and finding out later when I was nearly 18 that that was a lie, relates to people on a very fundamental level of wherever they experienced inauthenticity, either in themselves or those who were charged with their caregiving, where they found that things weren't as they appeared, or that there was some sort of family secret, or this sort of experience where they could not fully be themselves. And maybe they were the family secret, or the thing that, folks were embarrassed or couldn't live up to, or, just socially felt unaccepted. And I love that. I love that we can all connect in that space and we can see each other then. And I think that that's probably been the greatest blessing that I never saw coming when I started this non-project, as I say, that ended up as a book.
Were you adopted or?
No, actually, I was not. So my mother, I believe, in 1970, when she found out she was pregnant with me, I think that she made a decision the moment that I came out, and she realized at my birth, because she was alone, my mom had very quick labors and I was born in the car in the front seat of a two-seater car, and her husband had ran into the hospital, parked the car haphazardly, runs in the hospital looking for some doctor or somebody to help. And she ended up birthing me alone. And
oh, wow.
She used to tell the story, and I write about this in the book, because I don't think that she knew the impact of her story, but she used to tell the story that when I came out, I wasn't breathing. And she was so afraid to lift up. She was wearing a very long dress, and she was so afraid to lift up the folds of the dress for what she would find. And I wondered, after I was 18 and found out my true parentage, who my father was she also worried about the color of my skin? Because she married a white man who was blonde hair, blue-eyed. And I have to believe that even though her and I never had this conversation, that was a fear for her throughout her pregnancy. And then here she is birthing this child. And, it's 1971 now. She lives in this extremely rural, small town that's extremely closed-minded and has a history of being very closed as it applies to diversity and ethnicity. And she had to have had that fear. And then when in fact I came out, this very, dark haired, curly, had lots of hair, very curly hair, brown eyes, she had to have went, right? Like, yeah. We just never had that conversation. So I can't, I can't know that, but I do know that the man on my birth certificate was not my father. And everywhere I looked in my life, there was nobody who looked like me, who resembled me. And so I spent all of my formative years trying to find a place to fit in and to be accepted. And I don't think that I found that until well into my adulthood.
And you're lucky you found it then, because some people never find that.
Agreed.
So how many siblings did you have? I mean, I've seen pictures and my audience has not, but how many siblings did you have?
I have an older sister and a younger brother. The picture that's on the cover is me or us and our cousins. So we lived on this farm, and there was another 2 houses on, God, 100 acres. And one of them housed my brother's father, the man who's on my birth certificate, his sister, her husband, and their 2 boys. And so they're all in the picture. And when we take this picture, and you can see from the cover, like everybody was just pretending, like nobody sees the elephant that's in the room, this very brown skinned girl with all of these curls that were, in the picture, they're tied back in a ponytail. But, when my hair is not in twists, it's very large curls. It is undeniable. And I just sometimes sometimes you have to look back at your life and just laugh. Like, nobody was talking about it.
No. And I mean, I didn't realize until a few years ago, and my mom's been gone for 30 years this last year. I didn't realize until I started unpacking my mother's behavior, how racist she was. And the reason why I'm saying this is because when my parents split, we moved in with my grandparents, her mom and dad, and I was the only Caucasian kid in the neighborhood. And I used to play stickball with them and everything else. Well, my grandpa died and they shipped me to Florida. And so when we come back, we're living in a different house. And I'm like, and I didn't have any friends now. I had no friends, there was no kids around. So she'd rather me have no friends than this. Then it gets worse. When we moved up to Shreveport, I had been at an all-girl Catholic high school. And she asked me, she's like, do you want to, and this was when I was in New Orleans. And then she asked me, do you want to go to the Catholic girls' school up here? I'm like, no, I'm done with that. I'd like to have boys in my life and stuff. Okay. Well, they move us to this neighborhood, and my mother uses a fake address to put me at another high school because she says, quote unquote, it's a bad school. Yeah. And the more I thought about it as an adult, I'm like, but my stepbrother was going to the junior high school. And my stepsister went to the junior high school, but the high school was bad.
Right. Because at that point, do you not I think that we start questioning, right? Like, because we see as children, but we're not having the conversations, right? And I think that it's so interesting because you formulate these ideas and these thought process from all the experiences that you have. I remember being 3 years old and knowing that I looked like nobody was willing to have the conversation. My sister is 7 years my senior, and she was an extremely miserable person. And so she was my tormentor. And so she would say all of these really awful things. I had no way of refuting them because I just didn't have a language. Like, she was right there. I was different. I didn't look the same. And only the things that she would say were really horrible. And the fact that no other adult was willing to have the conversation or say something to me, and yet we formulate these ideas. And so here you are knowing something is amiss and it's not right, but you're not having those conversations with your mom. And so I totally get that.
And if I would have asked, she would have just said, it's not safe. That I did ask. I'm like, why can't, because I worked at the McDonald's in the area.
Oh,
so
okay.
I'm like, why can't I? No, it's not safe. Okay. Yeah. I challenged her a lot. And the thing is, as I went to college and even after that, it's like, I was always thinking that we were more of a melting pot than we were, that we had better, that people weren't as racist. But that was my perception because I wasn't. But I grew up, it's like, I didn't grow up with her all the time. And there's a whole nother caveat to that one. But it's interesting when I look back and say, you were just not who I imagined you to be, lady.
Do you know what's so interesting that you say that is I think that as adults that when we look back, some of the things that when I was writing, I was like, Like, this is really bad. But we normalize it as children because it is our norm. It's just what we know.
We normalize it for that reason, but we also, like the really super trauma bits, we tend to mask. I've talked about this before because, you know, it took me until I was 52, 51. I was over at a friend's house and we were talking about life and everything. And I'm talking about how my mother tells me my stepfather does great pedicures. And he wants to do a pedicure on me and he'll buy me a nice pair of shoes. Okay, didn't think anything about it. And as I'm talking to her at 51 years old, 52, I'm sitting there going, wait a second, because then it goes to my mind that when my mom died and I was going through her things, I found videotapes of her feet. Just her feet, nothing else.
He's got a full fetish. And
yes.
You didn't know it.
No, and my mother knew this. And my mother later on accused me of sleeping with this man when I had nothing to do with this man. I hated the man, basically. There was only a few times where I didn't hate him. But my mind, what I'm getting at is my mind did not even acknowledge it. Just
Right. Yes, I would agree. Yes, so, that's what happens.
And when I look at the fact that when him and I had a physical fight and his hands were around my throat for a long time, I would sit there and say, oh, we had a physical altercation. When I hit my 40s, it was like, ding, ding, a light goes on. No, he was trying to kill you.
Right. Yeah.
But our mind, when we're younger, just sugarcoats it. So, I mean, how do you deal with somebody knowing that somebody was trying to kill you?
Right.
So
that
even in your situation, I think your mind had to play tricks on you to keep you in a safe space.
Yes, I 100% agree. 100% agree. And I think that that's, the job of, our mind is to be protective, that ego protects us and allows us to live in a space and function within a space because this is where we're at. And what else are you going to do? Right.
Right. I mean, if you acknowledge that as a kid, how tormented would you be? How freaked out would you be?
Right.
I mean, I can only imagine now thinking back when my mother accused me of sleeping with him, which I never did, I would have to say, I would turn around and look at her and go, you let the man touch my feet, knowing you put me in harm's way. And knowing he has a foot fetish, is that sexual assault?
Right. You volunteered me up, Mom.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's just one of those things where it's like, I'm glad I didn't know when I was younger. I didn't put all that together.
Yeah, I would agree. That's helpful.
So you're a chiropractor. So how did being a chiropractor, you couldn't practice necessarily when COVID was going on?
Oh, such a great question. I live in Atlanta, Georgia, and our governor was pretty supportive. We were considered essential workers, and I never closed my practice. Okay. As a matter of fact, when some of my friends who work in different professions and fields were anxious to get out of the house and go back to work, I remember feeling like, I'm exhausted. I would like a day off, right? We never slowed down. And we showed up every single day. And so that's I think that the greatest blessing is when you know the truth about health, that it's an inside job and that your immune system controls all aspects of how that we react to our environment. Then the greatest blessing is to make sure that it's functioning at its most optimal. So for us to show up at work every single day and see our patients, using obviously responsible protocols and all safety measures considered, we showed up every single day and did exactly what we needed to do. And we never had an issue, not one time. All of our people showed up, and their families just kept getting healthier and healthier. We see entire families. And so that was a huge blessing.
Nice. Because my chiropractor, her family got COVID. So she closed her practice for a while. And I was like, okay, we'll see what happens next.
Yeah.
So you also are an entrepreneur.
I get to own the practice that I work in, although the joke is that I just work there because my front office, my two assistants are probably two of the most incredible women I know, and I am very, very lucky to have them as part of my team. And so, oftentimes, the adjusting rooms are in the back. And sometimes I get to come up front and then they just look at me like, what are you doing outside? Go back there, do your job. And so the joke is that I just work there. But I love it. I love creating my own space. I've worked in other people's offices, and I am honored and grateful to be able to show up and serve in the way that we do, because I get to, make those decisions. And I think going from an employee mindset to an entrepreneur mindset, it took me a minute to make that shift. And there were many times that I was like, who makes that decision around here? And then the realization, especially in that first year, like, I get to do that, right? So that's been pretty exciting. When I first opened, I wore slacks, dress flats, and a button-up shirt or a nice blouse, and sometimes even a blazer every single day to practice. And at the end, maybe after the second year, I was miserable. My feet were killing me. I was like, I'm so unhappy. And it took the advice of another author who had written a book called The Worthy Wardrobe. And it was essentially about the emotions that go behind the clothes that you put on every day and how they make you feel. And we had a whole conversation. And she said, I help people every single day in the executive C-suites. And she said, to make these women feel the most powerful, where do you find power? I was like, in jeans and chucks. And she was like, so wear jeans and chucks. We'll just get logoed shirts so that you look professional in your polo, but you got every single day. I wear jeans, chucks, and a logoed shirt. And I can't tell you the difference that it has made. I get to make those decisions, and that's pretty dope to me.
It is. I was going to say, when you think about where you came from, how you say that you weren't breathing to now, I mean, you have this big presence.
Yeah.
That's pretty amazing.
Yeah, I love that.
It's pretty amazing. Yeah. When I got married, I had tennis shoes on. I'm not going to lie. I had the white formal wedding dress and I had tennis shoes on underneath. I loved heels, but I have a bad back, so I'm not going to wear heels with the bad back. So yeah, I had white tennis shoes.
I love that.
You got to do what you got to do, you know?
Yes. Be you in all moments.
Exactly. So you're a cyclist as well.
I am. As a matter of fact, I just this morning sent out so in Georgia, or at least in Atlanta, there's part of a newer freeway that's called the Georgia 400. And I don't know the exact length of it, but they have this cyclist event that they call Georgia 400 because part of the event is you get to ride 3 miles on the actual freeway. They shut it down from one exit to another exit, which is 3 miles. And you get to ride on that at the very beginning. So they only shut down the freeway, in one direction for about 30 minutes. That's about how long it takes everybody. And there's literally hundreds of people who sign up for this event. And so it's coming around again in June. And last year, I bought my first bike as an adult for myself, COVID, my birthday in April in 2020. And I started riding for recreation. And then, of course, because I'm me, it became this big, huge, ordeal that my son, my teenager at the time, I was like, yeah, we're going to ride together. He was like, you're doing too much, Ma. You're doing too much. And so he sort of bowed out and I kept going. And so I wanted to challenge myself and do more and more and more. And last year at that event, I rode 60 miles.
Wow.
And this year, I want to do 100 miles, which is called a century, right? And so I sent that out this morning to a friend, like, I want to do this. And so June 25th, hopefully that's what we'll be doing. We'll be riding 100 miles.
Wow. Wow. That's a pretty amazing feat.
Yeah, so I say I'm excited about it because I am, but like, it's a lot because there's a lot of hills. This is not flat land, mind you. They intentionally create these routes with some of these climbs. You're just like, I thought that Georgia didn't have mountains. Like, that's what it feels like. And so I'm excited though, because when you're done, man, that feeling like, did I just do that? So excited.
And then you have the heat to contend with because it'll be June. So
yes. There's that part.
It'll be a fun time for you though. I mean, yes. If it's your passion, then that's what you need to do.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I want to circle back. You said you hadn't had that conversation with your mom. Do you still talk to your family now that you've embraced your truth? Do you still have close relationships with your family? What allowed me to be 100% free in writing the book is knowing that I couldn't have written it 10 years ago or prior to that. So both of my parents died 10 years ago. And I think that I had spent a lifetime being a self-appointed protector to my mother. The man who was on my birth certificate was a very abusive man. And I, at a very early age in life, assigned myself that role, and nobody else asked me to do it. And so growing up, what I found is that I also protected my mom against my own emotions and was not 100% demanding of the things that I needed. And I am a middle child. So for me and my family, what that meant was, my sister, as I stated earlier, just struggled a lot. And because she was 7 years older than me, she hit teenage years, well before me. And she had, struggled with alcohol and drugs, and she became a teen mom. And, she was out of the house and really just had a tough time. And I felt an even greater responsibility, to be the good kid. And then my brother, followed a similar route. And I was like, what is happening in the world right now? I knew that I looked different, even though nobody was willing to have those conversations. And I kept secretly saying to myself, like, that's the reason why. Like, these blonde-haired folks don't know what to do in the world. But I just have a better sense of self, or maybe I just didn't get caught at the things that I did. And so allowing myself as an adult to sort of explore that was probably just a really long unfolding. And my mother and I, it took me a minute to sort of figure out, after she told me the truth when I was 18, how to be in the world. And probably maybe about 3 years into us really trying to struggle and figure out what that relationship was really going to look like, I started finding more grace in my heart. And when I became a mother, that's when I truly saw my mother. I met my mother in becoming a mother myself. And I had a lot of grace to give her. And she was an incredible woman. I truly think that my mom is the reason I am the person I am. And I credit her with the tenacity that she showed in all things. And so I think that just allowed me to give her even more grace.
But to be 100% transparent, I couldn't have written the book freely while she was alive. And while I don't dishonor her in the book, I do tell the truth. And I wouldn't have done that when she was living. I was still protecting her. So it's nice to be able to be in the space to write the book freely, but also it feels like I'm telling a story that she couldn't ever have told.
Right. And I mean, I was talking to somebody recently about the fact that we tend to want to save our parents. We want to save our, especially if we're parenting ourselves. It's like, for me, yeah, most of my childhood, at a certain point, it was rescuing mom, it was pleasing mom, it was saving her as much as I tried to, and the thing is that we don't know is we can't save anybody else, but we're too young to think about that. It's like the old adage when your parents tell you, oh, well, wait till you grow up, you're going to realize life's not that easy. And you're like, oh, you don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Okay, maybe you did, but
yes.
We're not going to talk about that. But yeah. I mean, seriously, we always try to save somebody. It's like, and I look back, as much as I love my husband, I think at a certain point, he fit the criteria for me to try to save him.
Yeah.
I mean, I love him. Don't get me wrong. I loved him to pieces, but I also knew going in, when I look back, it's funny because I can click the boxes. It's like, well, he needed help. He needed to be saved. Okay. Yeah. And eventually he was going to pass, and that. So there's that abandonment issue that you get to re-trigger all over again. Mm-hmm. And it takes stepping back to be able to actually realize and recognize that. That doesn't diminish the fact that I loved him, but that is part of the truth of the relationship. And I don't think we ever look at our relationships honestly.
Oh my gosh. Yes. Yes. I would absolutely agree. And I think that sometimes peeling back those layers seems so scary and so terrifying to us that the idea is formidable, and we choose not to. And in that election, not to analyze and go down those very dark rabbit holes. I think that we think that we're keeping ourselves safer when the truth is that we are preventing ourselves from living our most freeing, our most authentic life, because what's beyond those stories that we have been telling ourselves and the meanings that we have derived from the experiences is freedom and joy. But we don't know that, not until we've, undergone all of the hard stuff and the tears.
Well, the one thing to his credit, I will say, he is one of the few people that loved me unconditionally. So that, as I sit here and say, check boxes, that is the biggest gift anybody can ask for. And because he was losing his vision, it didn't matter how I looked. Yeah. He loved me for me. Yeah. And that is a rare gift in this day and age.
Yes. And when you find it, because you can often find yourselves through somebody else's vision of yourself, because, we also layer ourselves with the world's opinions, right? Mm-hmm. And when we can pull those back and we get an opportunity to see somebody who sees us with this wonderful light, and you're just like, me? That's me? Are you sure?
Yeah. The first time I met him, I was going to a tarot party. It was a New Year's Eve event that I was working, and I was all dressed up, and I didn't really think anything. It was like, hi, bye. And then later on, he told me, it's like, the first time I saw you, I thought, wow, she's way out of my league. And I was just like, me?
How awesome is that?
Oh, it's awesome. I just kept going, me? You're way mistaken.
But yeah. How amazing is that? I love that.
So, I mean, it's one of those things we don't necessarily see. And that's the one thing. We let outside factors, whether it be skin color, weight, whatever, we let those outside factors put a layer on us, as you were saying. And then we never look past that, because it's like, okay, this is my role. This is how I'm supposed to play this game. But the fact is, it's not. You're supposed to be you. And until somebody actually starts pulling that off, it's like I was talking to somebody the other day and was like, so when somebody goes, so I really like your blouse, And you immediately go, instead of thank you, you're like, oh, well, I got it over at such and such on sale at such a. Nobody asked that.
No. Just
accept the compliment.
Yep. This old thing. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. But we are so triggered. We are so taught to tap down the ego. Do not accept the compliment, and compliments make you feel weird. So just go, okay, well, I got it on sale. Who cares?
Right. Wasn't the question.
No.
She wasn't asking to go buy it.
No.
She didn't need to know the clearance rounder that it happened to be on in the box on the way back, tucked underneath the thing. Yeah.
No, but I mean, is it because we're proud of our shopping prowess? I don't know. But I mean, sometimes I've gotten a really good deal, like a Vera Wang purse for $20. It's like, yeah, but
you're going to scream that from the rooftops. But you're absolutely right. I think we have to become much more aware when we make the dismissive comments, because they are designed to uplift us, right? Somebody saw you in a moment, or they saw your shopping prowess. They saw a beauty that you maybe weren't paying attention to in that moment. They brought it to your attention. And this idea of dismissing it is unfortunate, because I think that what we do, as the great Patti LaBelle says in her book, we block other people's blessings when we don't accept the gifts that they're offering us. And compliments are, in fact, a gift, right?
Yes, they are. Yeah. I will say, I got to see Miss Patti LaBelle at Live Aid. I was in the stadium, and I had been down in the crowd for a long time, but we actually had seats. And at this point, she was late in the show and was like, you know what? I'm tired. We're going to go up. So we went and sat in our seats, and her mic went out. You know what, though? You could still hear her all the way up in the stands.
Wow.
Her voice was that phenomenal. It's one thing about Live Aid. I mean, there's many things about Live Aid, but that's one of those things about Live Aid that I still remember. And it was like, I give her props, kudos, because that is an amazing voice to be able to pull that off.
Yes. Yes. God, so incredible. Her life story is pretty phenomenal. And I love her voice, and just, man, the feeling that you get in the center of your chest when you hear her belt out her tunes. It's just like, yes.
And it's not, and here's the thing, it's not auto-tuned. It wasn't all what it is. I mean, not discrediting anybody today, but this is a pure voice.
Yes. Yes.
It's not doctored. And that's why I was just blown away. You know, when I look at Lady Gaga, when Lady Gaga first came out, I'm just like, okay, so here we go with another processed voice, da, da, da. And then I saw her in Saturday Night Live sit down at the piano, just her and the piano. And I was like, okay, she's got a real voice. It was pretty amazing. But
nice.
It just takes a while. I mean, there's so many people out there that mask their voice, and goes back to those layers. What are we supposed to put out there? What are we supposed to entertain? How am I going to make it?
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. Gosh, that's amazing. I'm glad you had those opportunities, and thank you for sharing, because I feel like I saw Patti LaBelle at Live Aid.
It was awesome. I mean, I didn't get to see Lady Gaga at Saturday Night Live, but I saw that on TV. But Patti, I mean, just seeing her was, and granted, she was a spec because we were up in the stands, but still, you knew, and you could see her on the Jumbotron, because that was the new thing back in the 80s. But yeah, it was an awesome show. It really was. And I'm glad I got to go. I won tickets off the radio to go. So
what?
Yes.
I assumed you went because you had spent time in the radio business.
No, at the time I was 17 years old, and my friend and I stayed up 3 nights in a row, and we counted how many times they played Sussudio on the radio. And you had to be caller number 1 or 9. And she was caller number 1. I didn't know. I was caller number 6. And then a future friend was caller number 9. And so we flew from Shreveport. It was airfare, hotel, and tickets to the show. So we flew from Shreveport, went to the show, and yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
That's incredible. I remember those times trying to call into the radio station and get picked. That's awesome.
It was always easier with a push button phone, but a rotary phone.
Yes. My mom wouldn't upgrade. I was like, Mommy, we're never going to win. Do you think that woman cared? She was like, I was raised by parents who were raised in the Depression. You aren't getting a push button.
Yeah, I remember one time I was trying to win tickets to a concert in Texas, and I was working at Albertsons, and I was working in the produce department. And the only phone to get to, this is before cell phones, was the bakery. So I had to run from the produce department through the back all the way while they're baking bread and everything to dial the phone and get through. And about the 10th time I got through, the DJ recognized me. I still wasn't the caller, but he stopped. He's like, I said, look, I'm trying, I'm working, da. He's like, you know what? I'll put your name on the side. He's like, I said, okay. So I didn't get picked. And then I get a call the following Saturday. I come home from work. My mom's like, the radio station called. They wanted to talk to you. I'm like, okay. So I call, and the girl who won, this is so weird because the girl who won actually was my old boss's ex-wife.
No,
I didn't even know. Okay. We didn't even know. Anyway, she said, the DJ tells me, well, the winner doesn't have anybody to take. And since you were so super excited, you were like one of the most excited people, she wants you to go with her. Oh, I'm like, okay.
My gosh, what a blessing.
And then we showed up at the radio station. I'm like, I know you. She goes, yeah. So yeah, it was a wild time. I mean, I've had some awesome moments. I've had some crappy moments in my life, but I've had some fantastic moments in my life.
I love that. I love that story. That's incredible.
So you got to keep, that's what I always look at. You know, your book, Raised as a Lie. Even though you're raised as a lie, look at how you're thriving. Look at what you've done with your life. And the thing is, we can choose to get stuck in trauma, which I'm sure there's days you still have, maybe a bad day. Yeah. But you're succeeding, you're excelling, and life is, awesome for the most part.
It's so freaking amazing. Every time that life has become a lot, what I can sort of make the pinpoints of that journey, and I can look back over that, is when I got to a place where I could be grateful, not for the thing, I'm not that evolved, people, but when I could be grateful for something. Right? I could find one thing to be grateful for, is when things began to shift every single time without fail. And so for me now, to be almost 51, I feel good. I look, good. I work really super hard. We're about to do this triathlon in April. And I'm beyond grateful. Like, there's no other word that encompasses that feeling, that's sort of the river that runs through my life. Like, it's the current that's constantly flowing. Because while there are issues, man, Michael Bernard Beckwith says that pain pushes you until your vision pulls you. And I embodied that statement for such a long time that I think that I was running my life through pain until I decided to embrace the vision and immerse myself there so that my life can resemble the thing that I always wanted it to look like. And it does. And it's just getting better every single day.
And I want to go back to when you first started talking, you talked about how you were on the floor because of a man. And the thing is, I bet you, I don't know if you're in a relationship now because COVID's weird, but I bet you the next relationship, you will be more empowered and you will take more control over you.
Yeah, absolutely. I am dating somebody now, and it's so incredible because I promised myself that I would never show up again in another relationship being anything other than who I am. And what I had started to, all things happen exactly as they should, when they should. And I was married for 22 years. And when that marriage ended, it was devastating because I got married to stay married, and we had 3 kids, and unfortunately we broke it. Like it was tragic. And 6 years after divorce, I started thinking, oh my gosh, am I going to be alone? I'm 40. I was 49. The relationships that I had been in post the divorce hadn't worked out. I dated a lot of guys. I was so over it. And I was like, I'm 100%. I'm going to be a cat lady. Only I hate cats. Like I'm not a cat lady. Like what am I supposed to do? And my youngest was 17. He was about to turn 18. He wanted to be a pilot. He knows exactly what he wants. I knew he was leaving home. I was going to be, an empty nester. And I'm going to be by myself. Like, man, that sucks. And this is pre-writing the book, right? So I don't realize that when tragedy strikes and and a child dies, and he's 13 in my family, and my heart is just in pieces. And I don't know how to put all of these things together, being alone and worried about my own children and their own mental health. And what does that look like? And then in walks this man into my life. And I think, this is it. This is the reward. This is everything that I've been waiting for. So of course it's going to be phenomenal. And I put everything, and I do mean everything, on a man who was never designed or capable of giving me what it is that I needed, but I put everything on him. And so when he walked out of the door, I felt shattered, not broken, shattered. I felt like I'm never going to be able to put these pieces back together. And it was simply because I did not look internally. I didn't look inside. I wasn't doing the self-reflection. I thought I was good. I was 49. I was a successful doctor. I had my own practice. I was raising kids. Like, I thought I was good. And the truth is those are just layers and of titles and accomplishments that I have put on, like an outfit, like a uniform. But when I dug everything down deep to the core, I realized that there were some really unhealed parts that needed to be addressed. And so he showed up so I would write a book. I just didn't know it then. And I am grateful. And so now the relationship I'm in now, sometimes we have conversations. He's like, is that a little too honest? Is that a little too much? And I was like, really? Is it? Because I feel like it's not. So that's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun being this honest and this in tune with who I am, how I want to show up in the world, how I want to love, and how I can meet you where you are, but from a place of wholeness and not a place of I'm trying to conform to whatever it is that you need and want so that you won't leave me. That's not a good place. Like, nothing good is going to come from that. So I appreciate being here in this space and learning some of those pretty hard won lessons.
Yeah, at 22, I had that whole thing of, oh my gosh, I'm going to be alone for the rest of my life. I'm like, if I could go back, I would just go slap, slap. No. Don't.
You got years to go, honey.
Yeah,
don't worry about it. Yes.
But I think when you're coming from a bad background, you start looking at, is this what life is?
Yes.
And, if I could give anybody advice that's younger than me, way younger than me, I would say, slow your roll. There's always a change coming. This isn't the end. Just keep going.
Yeah. Yeah. Because the only thing constant about life is change.
Exactly. So is there anything else you want to add?
Thank you for having me on your show. I love having these conversations. I love connecting at this level where we're just sharing stories. What I think that becoming an author for me is the opportunity to have these conversations. And I never imagined how much that it would enrich my life. So I do appreciate that so much. And And I hope people buy the book so I can have more conversations.
Well, then maybe you get to write another book.
Yes. Yeah. As soon as, after you push out a baby and they, and you're holding your baby and you're like, yes, this is amazing. And then the amnesia comes with all of the, months and days of being pregnant and all the hours of pushing out said baby. And you're like, yeah, I'll do it again. I haven't held my book yet. So we're going to reserve the let's go write another book until at least that happens. Today is February 1st. So Thursday, February 3rd, the book will arrive and we are doing this big, unboxing celebration in my practice with all of my patients and friends and just enjoying that moment of just pure celebration. And so after that, then we'll talk about writing another book. Right now, I'm just going to celebrate.
I understand. I mean, the first time I held my book, it was just like, wow, I wrote this. It's actually a long-term dream come true. It's an amazing experience. It really is. And yes, you described it perfectly. It is a baby. I've never had kids physically, but it is a baby because all the things you have to go through.
Yeah. Yeah, you birthed that. This feels like my 5th child. I have 3 walking around the earth. I have 1 practice and now 1 book.
Well, all of it is, you are giving birth to creativity, birth to even your practice. It's a creative idea that you formed into something tangible.
Yeah. Isn't that interesting that everything is an idea before it becomes the thing? It's just an idea. And to watch an idea become manifest.
Yeah.
Man.
Yeah. I don't think we ever acknowledge that. It's like, it has to grow. It's like a seed. You have to plant it and you have to water and nurture it.
Yeah. 100%. Yes. How many books have you written?
I've written 2 and I have 2 that I'm actually 3 that I'm currently working on, kind of 4, because I'm writing 2. Well, the thing is, I'm writing one that is it's a couple's point of view. And then the other one is another guy's point of view of this couple. And yeah.
Wow.
So, yeah.
That's exciting. Well, then I have a question for you. I can't even imagine trying to do more than one writing project at a time. How do you manage that? How do you get in one space and then shift and get in another space to be able to create like that?
Lunacy, no. Well, here's the thing. I mean, I've written. Okay, so while I say I have 4 books written, I have other books that are in this series that are in bit. If a scene comes to me, I'll go ahead and write it. Even if it's 4 books away, I write that scene and yes, it'll change, but it's there. It's a touch point. So I have a path for them to head to.
I love that.
So that's why it's kind of, if I'm stuck writing a scene, and I can tell you this for a fact, I'll be sleeping sometimes and 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, one of my characters wakes, I'll wake up. And if I have a tangible thought in my head, here we go. Here's an idea for you. And I better record it or I better get up and write. If I'm driving down the road, same thing. So it's like, this is how I can do that because the ideas come, I have to work on it. And it's easy, as complicated as it seems, I'm writing this from this couple's point of view and then having his point of view. It's not that hard because I'm taking, if they're all interacting, I have his version of events versus their version of events.
Man, that is so incredible. Because I wrote a memoir, because I know how the story ends, because I lived the story and I am the character, that makes sense to me. What I always have been in awe is authors and writers who create from nothing. And the amount of respect and just intrigue that I have it's just incredible. What you create it's magic. And I love to be the reader. I love to be the consumer of said magic because I'm enthralled with that process. And that's so incredible. I've never had anybody explain that to me like that.
I was on Sharifa Hardy's show, the Roundtable Talk Show, and her and I became friends and everything. And she did a solo interview with me. And I wrote my second book in a month. And then I added to it because there's a whole story, but I wrote it. And she's like, I want a copy. I'm like, okay. So I give her a copy. And when we're doing the solo thing, she's like, how do you do this? She's like, if it would be me, I would have had them fall in love and that would have been it. It would have been 2 pages long, end of story. She's like, but this book had twists and turns. And how do you do this? I'm like, I just do. It just comes. I have a really weird creative mind. And dare I say some of that past trauma to protect myself, I had escapism. So instead of turning to drugs, alcohol, or whatever, I turned to the written word, and just started writing in high school. So, yeah. And before that, I used to stick myself into TV shows as a kid. Mm-hmm. So, yeah.
That's amazing. And isn't that why we respect the artists that we do? I think Adele became the sensation she did because we all felt her pain. We all felt her journey. When she sings those songs, she's not talking about something that she hadn't experienced. Right. We feel it because it's authentically hers, but it's also ours. She's singing our stories. And I can imagine, although not there, that's not where my writing will ever come from, but I can imagine the honor it is having your characters come through you. Yeah. Because what it sounds like is you're not birthing them, you're giving life to them and animating them in a way that they have asked you to. And that's incredible.
Well, the first book, My Days with Dark Muse, I started out as a marketing piece. It was going to be for this 30-year novel. I started as a marketing piece and I started writing as a blog. So I was doing daily posts on WordPress. And I was having rehab centers follow because he's a drug addict. The guy is a drug addict, alcoholic, bass player. It's his journal. So I'm writing like a little journal entry and I started having rehab centers following. And I'm like, okay, so you're thinking this is real, obviously, if you're following me. I'm like, all right, I'm just going to turn this into a book. So I did. And I've had men tell me, I can't believe a woman wrote this. I'm like, okay. And my husband used to joke because he would say, you're never going to get a book out before I die. He got 2 out, but he's like, when I would read him Nigel, because he would go to dialysis, I'd go write and I'd pick him up and I'd share what happened. He's like, man, Nigel's my hero.
That's dope.
I'm like, really, babe? Yeah. You got the male voice down. I'm like, okay. So, yeah.
I love that. I'm also intrigued how we can, fit ourselves into somebody else's experience and, to use your words, and nail it, just be right there in it. I mean, is it that it's just a human experience?
I think, I took acting classes when I was younger and I wanted to be an actress. And one of the things my acting coach told me is the same thing I apply to writing. You have to live in the moment. You have to be in that character's head during that time. If you're not, dare I say, you have to be authentic. If you're not being authentic for that character, then it's going to show. And people are going to recognize that this isn't right. So you have to be authentic. I can't, there's times when it's on TikTok and stuff where guys have written romance novels and the way that they describe a woman is like, there's no way a woman is even that way. But it's very easy for a woman because I've been talked to inappropriately by men throughout my life because I'm busty. So I'm used to being around guys that are very slangy. So it was easy enough to do that. And, having the father I had who was very proud to do ridiculous things, my dad was a party guy. It was very easy to play that guy after watching him. So yeah.
Interesting. I like that. I like hearing about that process. That's pretty incredible.
Well, thank you. And thank you for coming on the show. I'm glad you did.
So. Me too. Thank you so much. I appreciate you.
You're welcome. So Nehemiah's journey to get to be where she is today is an amazing journey. And I think one that can really resonate with a lot of different people. When you look at the questions that I asked that she has on her book trailer, all of us can relate to that. All of us have the past coming back, and we try to heal it, but sometimes something will trigger it and bring us right back to that moment. And all we can do is keep moving forward. We have to look, though. We have to peel back the layers and look at who we really are. I mean, for her, she was raised one way, and that wasn't the way it should be. She wasn't being able to be true to who she was. She wasn't able to embrace the beauty of who she was. And now she does. Now she's empowered. And I think if we can peel the layers back, the labels back of who we think we're supposed to be, that was placed upon us as a child or a teen, we can move past those things. But we have to be willing to take the blinders off, take the rose-colored glasses off, and really see who we are. And that takes a lot. And we have to be able to be willing to live in gratitude and be thankful for what we have. Sure, today might not be the best day in the world, but guess what? There is tomorrow. And we can always see something changing and something will be better. So on that note, if you want to leave me a question, comment, or you just want to be a guest on the show, you can do so at Dauna, Dauna, at better2podcast.com. That's Dauna at better2podcast.com. If you want to follow the show and subscribe, you can do that at better2podcast.com. And you can also find our social media there as well. So I hope you enjoy the show today, and I'll catch you next time, guys. Bye. The Better 2 podcast is mixed, edited, and produced by Rich Zai of Third Ear Audio Productions.